Hello everyone. It's gonna be a very tough video to film today. The toughest one I've ever done. So I've always talked about my testimony. That's what this channel is for, to talk about what I've been through and show you what God has done for me. But I've never went in depth to start to now and told y'all exactly everything that happened, because it's been a lot. And some of y'all will probably be shocked at everything that I have been through this year and have made it through. This is gonna be hard. I'm gonna try not to cry in this video. There cannot make any promises because it's very tough. It's very tough to talk about, because it's like, wow, this is really what my life has consisted of over the last year. So before I get to when it started in January, I'm gonna take it back a little bit before then. So this is obviously 2021. All 2021, I went to the doctors. I was having stomach pain. It wasn't as severe as it ended up being, but it was hurting, and I knew something was wrong with. I know my body. I knew something was wrong with it. But they would do X-rays. They would run tests, and they couldn't find anything. So they would be like, "It's anxiety. You have the stress of graduating and then going to college in August." Because at the time, right, I didn't know where I was going. I actually, fun fact, chose UNC the last day that you could choose. So had no clue where I was going, no clue what I wanted to do, where I wanted to spend the next 4 years of my life. Didn't know that. So I kind of was like, okay, the doctors say it's anxiety. But I also, in the back of my head, knew something was wrong. I knew that, yes, I'm a very anxious person still to this day, but I knew that I don't think that's why I'm feeling the way that I am. But every doctor that I went to, every urgent care that I went to, every ER, because I went numerous of times, I could tell you, the year of 2020, I probably went to at least 5 different places, 5 different times, even probably more than that, just trying to get help, because I knew something was wrong with my body. Well, nobody could find anything at the time, so fast forward to the year of 2022. It's January, New Year, just had Christmas, had an amazing Christmas, spent it with family. I had finished my first semester of college. I was excited to go back for my second semester. Like, second semester started a week. It was starting in a week, and I was like, well, let me go, hang out with some of my friends here that I won't see when I go to college. Let me hang out with them before I leave. So I hung out with one of my friends, and we went to Cracker Barrel, and then we went bowling. So we went to Cracker Barrel on January 5th. Went to Cracker Barrel and went bowling. And then I came home, and I was laying in my dad and stepmom's room. My stepmom's name is Crystal, so when you hear me mention Crystal, that's my stepmom. I was laying down in their room. I was watching The Resident with Crystal, because that's our show that we watch together. And all of a sudden, I just have to throw up. So I run to the bathroom, throw up, cannot stop throwing up. So it's constant. So then at the same time that I have to throw up, it's wanting to come out the other end. So I have explosive diarrhea. I guess that's a little TMI, but this is all on January 5th. So that night I went to sleep. Actually, that was January 4th. Went out to eat on January 4th, not January 5th. So January 4th, all that happens. Throw up, keep throwing up, keep pooping. Like, nothing stopping. Feeling terrible. Like, I feel like I'm running a fever. Feeling awful. So then that night, my dad also wasn't feeling well. So he was in the living room, and it was like 3 a.m. And I went in there because I was having some bad stomach pain. Who knew it could get worse? But I was having some really bad stomach pain. And went in there and was just crying tears. And I'm like, Dad, something's wrong. Like, something's going on with my body. Like, I've never felt. And I was like, it's like period cramps, but on steroids. And if you're a woman, you know what period cramps feels like. And those already hurt. So for that to feel like it was on steroids, I was like, something's not right. So he's like, okay, try to get some rest. Because obviously he didn't feel good too. And then we'll reassess in the morning. So finally, I go lay back down. But I could not sleep. So he ends up going to sleep. We're going to reassess in the morning. My stepmom, Crystal gets up at like, I think it was like 5 to go to work. She works at the hospital. And she's an OR nurse, so she was getting up at like 5 to go to work, and I'm awake and I'm screaming. When I tell you I'm screaming, like I'm literally screaming. I'm not crying, like I'm screaming. I'm in so much pain. Like my stomach felt like, I don't even know how to explain it, and I hope nobody ever experiences that pain that I went through. Like, oh, it was so bad. So bad. So I'm in so much pain and I'm screaming, and she comes up and she's like, yo, I'm not going to work. We're taking you to the doctor because this isn't right. But obviously urgent care wasn't open then. So she's like, try to get some rest, try to sleep. Here, I'll give you some medicine. Try to sleep for a few more hours, and then we'll wake up, and the first thing in the morning, we'll go to urgent care. So this is still in the middle of COVID. So I go to urgent care, and they're like, well, we can't allow you to go back in the doctor's office because of COVID. But like, I'm literally feeling awful, and I feel like the doctor's job is to take care of you and treat you, but apparently not. So they were like, we can do your like checkup outside. So they had us go outside and wait in the car. And then they were like, they come outside, they check my temperature. They were like, and then they had me pee in a cup. And they were like, okay, this is January 5th, by the way. So January 4th is when I started throwing up and stomach pain. January 5th is when I go to urgent care. They had me pee in a cup, and then they, obviously not outside, they had me go to the bathroom. But, and they did my checkup outside. They gave me a COVID test, didn't have COVID or anything. So then I'm like, okay, so they finally come back out, and they were like, well, we think you have food poisoning, and you definitely have a UTI. I'm like, okay, but I'm pretty sure I've had a UTI before. Don't quote me on that. Ask my family, they know more. I'm sorry, the ice machine decided to go off. So I'm sure I've had a UTI before. Don't quote me 100%. But I'm like, okay, I've never had food poisoning, so maybe this is food poisoning. Maybe that's why I'm just throwing up and having explosive diarrhea. But like, I don't think a UTI would make me feel as bad as it's making me feel. But that was just like, why was my stomach hurting the way it was? That's what I was thinking. Well, they said that's what I had. That's what I had. So the next day, I'm still thinking, and you know, it's a UTI and food poisoning. Not thinking that I'm just trying to get better, right? It'll pass. That's what they were like. They gave me some medicine for the UTI to heal it. And obviously, I did have a UTI, but that wasn't the main issue. So they gave me some medicine for that, and they gave me, they gave me medicine, and I was just, so January 6th, I was at home, and I was just trying to get better, because I was like, this got to pass, because I had already started packing to go back to school in a week, and I was like, all my stuff was in the living room, and I was excited. I was like, gotta go back to school, but I also felt terrible, so it's like, I was excited to go back, but I'm like, what if I go back and I still feel this way? So, so then January 6th passes. January 7th, I went to the doctor to go get Nexplanon, which is the birth control in your arm, because I have really bad period cramps, and I'm also anemic, so being on my period constantly, or not constantly, but once a month, and it being so heavy, it makes me even tireder than I normally am, and I'm like very anemic, so it never helps. So I was gonna get Nexplanon, you know, to kind of stop my period for a while. Also, it's birth control, so yeah, to each their own. But I couldn't get it because, you know, they have to get a pregnancy test before you're able to get it. And I could not pee because I had explosive diarrhea. So every time I tried to pee in that cup, it was just poop. And I was like in the bathroom for a good 10 minutes because I was just trying to pee, and then what was that bad? And I started crying. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is embarrassing. Like that's all I could think about. This is so embarrassing. Like, how am I supposed to go in here and tell her I cannot pee in a cup? I have poop. So embarrassed. So January 7th, I wasn't able to get the Nexplanon. at all. Still have not been able to get the next one up, by the way. Just haven't had time since then. So, January 8th, I went to get a COVID test because you had to get a COVID test before, like, I think it was like 4 days before you go back to school. So I went to get a COVID test, and also my brother took me because I did not feel good enough to drive. Like, I felt so bad. So he drove me. He looked at me. We were in the car waiting for them to call me in to get a COVID test, and he goes, "Your eyes are yellow." And I was like, "Oh." He goes, "You don't look good." And you know, sometimes family, they don't understand that doesn't make you feel any better, but he was like, "You don't look good." He was trying to be, you know, nice. So, "You don't look good. Your eyes are yellow. Are they normally this yellow?" That's what he said. And I didn't think nothing of it. I was like, no. Honestly, I did not feel good, so I couldn't really think of anything. And so I get back home after my COVID test. COVID's negative. And I call my mom. I'm on FaceTime with her, and she goes, "Jaden, you don't look good. Your eyes are so yellow. You'd most definitely need to go to the hospital." And I'm like, why do I need to go to the hospital? Like, obviously, I hate going to the hospital. Ever since my grandma died in 2014, I have just been terrified of hospitals. And she didn't even die in a hospital. She died at home. But anyway, that's another story for another day. But I was like, I don't want to go to the hospital. But I also knew how bad I felt, and something wasn't right. And I had been to the ER for stomach issues before, and nothing. And I was like, they don't ever say anything's wrong. So, like, what's the point? But I also knew how bad I felt. So I'm like, okay. So she said, "I'm calling Crystal, and when she gets off of work, she needs to take you to the hospital." Actually, Crystal wasn't at work that day. She had taken my dad to an appointment because he was also sick. So Crystal calls me and is like, okay. She looks at me and she goes, "Oh yeah, we need to go to the hospital." Obviously, she's in the medical field. She knows something's wrong. She goes, "Yeah, we need to go to the ER. I'm on my way home with your dad, and then we're going to go to the ER. I said, okay. So I get to my local hospital. This is January 7th, by the way. No, this is January 8th. I'm getting my days mixed up. This is January 8th. I get to the ER, and they look at me, and they're like, "Whoa, your eyes are yellow. You're really sick." But they place me in the hallway. So what I now know is multi-organ failure. I didn't know that then. But I was in the hallway for 3 hours waiting on the ambulance. In the hallway where there were no doctors. I was thirsty at the time. I wasn't thinking about how sick I was. I was thirsty. I was like, "Can somebody bring me some water?" Could not find anybody because there was no one around. I was in the hospital bed in the hallway. Well, anyway, that was very frustrating. But the thing that was even more frustrating, so I was waiting on an ambulance to come because they said, "Oh my God, something's wrong." Siri, come on. They said, "Something's wrong with your liver, and we don't have a liver specialist here, so we're going to either send you to UNC or Duke." And I chose UNC, you know, because I'm a Tar Heel, and I mean, Duke Hospital is great, which is actually where I get have dialysis and kidney stuff going on. So Duke Hospital is great, but I chose UNC because at the time that's what I knew. And I was like, it's closer to school. If I can just leave the hospital if I'm there for a week and go to school. Well, so they are like, okay, the ambulance is going to be here. We're going to rush you to UNC. The ambulance never comes. To the point where I had a bed at UNC. It's like late at night now, like 8 o'clock. And I'm still in this hospital hallway. And they're like, "Go ahead and tell your parents to leave to meet you there, to get your room situated. So to meet the ambulance there, and then the ambulance would be here." So my parents leave. Well, my dad and stepmom parents. They're my parents as well. So my parents leave, and I'm still sitting in the hallway all by myself. And then all of a sudden the doctor comes and says, "Well, the ambulance is in traffic and it's not going to get here for like another 5 hours. So call your parents back and have them drive you there." I'm like, you just had my parents leave. Now you want them to come back and then drive me 2 hours to Chapel Hill because the ambulance won't get here after I've been waiting 3 hours for this ambulance? So I was furious, frustrated, because I'm like, I do not feel good, and y'all are making me feel even worse. So my parents come back. They were like, goodness gracious, like they were on the highway, and they just came back, and they probably could have been frustrated, but they had bigger worries, which was me being sick and not feeling well. So they take me to Chapel Hill. I get there, and they take me to the pediatric ICU. No, not even the pediatric ICU. Wasn't in the pediatric ICU, sorry. They take me to the pediatric unit. And I remember specifically, I get there, they kept trying to get me to pee, like I said. When I went to get the next one on a few days earlier, I couldn't pee. I didn't have explosive diarrhea anymore, but I still could not pee. Not at all. So I remember going to the bathroom and trying to pee, and hearing my parents sing "Lay Down My Burdens," right? And I come out and I was like, y'all were singing? Why were y'all singing? And they look at me like I'm crazy, to be honest. And they're like, we were not singing at all. So apparently I was hallucinating, and I started having hallucinations all the time after that. Like, I would see people like come, and I was like, it was the scariest thing I've ever experienced, seeing hallucinations like that. But I like constantly saw them. So I had gotten so sick that it started messing with my brain. Like, there's a lot of things that when happen, and it's like, okay, but for it to like mess with the way I thought, the way I am, sorry. For it to mess with the way that I thought, the way that I saw things, the way that I saw my family, for it to mess with my mind, that was extremely tough. And at the time, I'm not thinking, oh, this is my body sick. I'm thinking, I'm really crazy at this right now. I'm so crazy. But that was so tough. So hallucinating, I'm not feeling well, I'm kind of lethargic, just laying there. So the doctor comes in and it's like, we're gonna call a code. Well, no, first the doctor comes in and it's like, you have Wilson's disease, I think. We don't know what else it could be, but we're pretty sure it's Wilson's disease, and you're gonna need a liver transplant. And at that moment, I have never felt so defeated. I had never felt so defeated. I was, first of all, shocked, and like my shoulders slumped, and I was like, a what? And they were like, a liver transplant. And I'm like, how do I go from being completely healthy to needing a liver transplant like this fast? Like, what is wrong? And they were like, my parents were trying to get me to calm down. My dad's like, calm down, it's gonna be okay. Crystal said, I'll give you a piece of my liver, because your liver grows. And but at the time I'm like, that is very generous of you, but what in the world is happening? Why do I need a liver transplant? And he was like, yeah, you have Wilson's disease. We're pretty sure, we're not 100% sure, but we're pretty sure you have Wilson's disease. So I'm still trying to cope with that. Like I said, I'm kind of lethargic. I'm laying in the bed, and then the doctor comes in again, and it's like, notices that my fever is spiking, my blood pressure is low, and he's like, we gotta call a code. First of all, I hate being called codes, because all of a sudden people are running in, there's so many people, the anxiety is high, everybody's wearing and when I was in the pediatric ICU, I met this nurse, a few nurses that were so sweet, and they were very there for me, and I did not want to leave the pediatric ICU, but they were like, we gotta call a code. So they called a code and moved me to the pediatric ICU. That entire time I was in the pediatric ICU, I kept getting calls from the person who is head transplant, and they were like, So, well, you need to get this worked out. We need to get this worked out. We need to talk to you about your injury. We need to do this evaluation. And like, I'm like, I do not feel well enough for you to do this. Like, if I'm this sick, why are you calling me? And they kept calling my family. They kept calling my mom. They kept calling my dad. They kept calling Crystal all the time, to the point where my mom kind of be like, okay, we're in here with the doctor. We cannot talk to you right now. Like, I know they were trying to help, but like the way they were doing it and as often as they were doing it, it just wasn't the right time, wasn't it? So they said I had Wilson's disease, needed a liver transplant. Turns out that wasn't the case. But during this time, my kidneys are also failing and nobody knew. I mean, now that I look back, it could have been a sign that I could not pee for a while, that something was going on with my kidneys, but because my eyes were so yellow and there was such evidence of liver disease, which there was, my liver was failing. So, my liver was failing, but so are my kidneys. They didn't really think that there was anything else going wrong. So, it's a lot, I know. Stay onward. So, on January 9th, they went in and they did an exploration of my abdomen procedure, right? They wanted to know what was actually going on because they were like, well, is it just a liver? They knew something else was going on. Well, one doctor knew. The other doctors were kind of cool with Wilson's disease and go with that. But another doctor was like, something else is going on. This isn't making sense. This isn't quite adding up. So they went into that. And that's when they found out that I had Crohn's, right? However, I was so swollen on the inside that they had to leave me open. So imagine, at the time I'm 18, so an 18-year-old who was completely healthy goes from that to being in the ICU with her abdomen open and on a ventilator, right? Like, wow. In a span of a week, short time. And so they ended up leaving me open. And then I think they closed me up the next day. So this was January 9th. So January 10th, I'm pretty sure they closed me up. Not 100% sure. Like I said, I was extremely out of it. I did go back and look at my chart and look at the days and stuff. But it doesn't actually have the day that they closed me back up. It does have my different procedures. So I do not know the exact day they closed me back up. But I am pretty sure it was January 10th. Because on January 11th, they had to reopen my abdomen again. And that's what it says. So I was already closed back up. They had to reopen me. And then they had to remove a chunk of my small intestine. So I always joke now, my intestine isn't the size of a normal person. So stuff runs through me. So when I say I gotta go to the bathroom, I gotta go to the bathroom. So they had to remove my small intestine. A piece of it, obviously. I still have some. So on January 13th, they reopened me up again. And this time, they put in an ileostomy. So they took the end of my intestine and pulled it out through my skin, and that was my pooper. I was disconnected. Oh, yeah. I was disconnected. So, from January 8th, I entered the hospital, to January 13th, I've had 4 procedures. 4 surgeries. 4 surgeries, and from January 8th to January 13th. Wow. And I'm sick as a dog. I'm septic, right? I am septic. So one night, after all of this, I am still on the ventilator, and I'm septic, and they're trying to get everything back to normal, stop being jumbo. And it's 3:30, so it's early morning, and I code. For about 5 minutes. And obviously I don't remember the code. I always joke and say, because I have a terrible sense of humor, I'm like, I didn't see Jesus, so So, like, I don't know what these people are talking about when they're like, you die and you see Jesus automatically. But everybody says God wasn't ready for me yet. And that's true. It's like God and my body were playing tug of war, and God's like, you know what? Not yet. Not yet. And he just let go of the rope, and I flew back onto my bed, into earth again. I'm so grateful that the doctors kept trying, because just imagine if they would have stopped like after a minute of the code, and I would have died at the age of 18. If they would have stopped. Sorry. Give me 1 second. Yeah, I'm literally bawling my eyes out. Like, I have an ileostomy. This is how I gotta go home. And then I spent 42 days in the hospital, and that entire time I really did not think about the ileostomy. And the minute I leave, that's all I can think about. I was distraught. So finally we get on the road again, because air worked, right? That worked for a total of 5 minutes. Yeah. So then the tire goes flat again. We have to go to this place to get the tire fixed. And they don't have any room yet, but they were willing. They were literally about to close. It's like 5 minutes from closing. But they were willing to take us in after. And I couldn't get out of the car because I was on a walker. I could barely walk. Because in the hospital, they really didn't let me, like, near the end, I started walking a lot more. But, like, before then, like, I was in bed. I was in bed for, like, 30 days straight, right? So, you can imagine the weakness, right? So they lift us up on the thing. Literally, we're in the car, and they push us sideways so they can put a new tire on. So that was interesting. No, they didn't put it. They fixed the tire, and they were like, my mom's going to pay. And he's like, no, like, you are obviously going through a lot. I'm like, thank you. So it's a 2-hour drive home. So I spent a total, on the day home, 7 hours in the car. 7 hours. When I got home, I was so tired. I was so exhausted. And I was so upset because I would look down and there's an ileostomy. And I'm like, I still gotta go to dialysis. Like, what is my life? That's what I was thinking. So after February 20th, the depression started to kick in. February 20th, I was fine. A few days after that, I was fine. But then I started getting severely depressed. I have never been in that state ever before in my life. Prior, I had never felt so helpless and hopeless, and never in my life have I felt like, one of the reasons is like my ileostomy bag, because where they did the incision and then pulled out my intestine was right beside my belly button. That, because, you know, they were not planning on doing it, they just like impulsively did it because they had already cut their stomach. So it was right beside my belly button, so none of the bags would stay on. So they would constantly break. And imagine waking up and there's poop on you. And the worst part is it like would make my skin raw. So, like, imagine like a baby with diaper rash. That's how my stomach was. And like, I think I have a picture, so I'm probably gonna insert it. So, warning, it may be a little disturbing for some, but it was so like raw all the time. It hurt to move, like move forward, move back, any movement, it hurt. So that, and then I still had to wake up every morning, well, every other morning, and go to dialysis, and that was hard. I was in physical therapy. I could not play basketball. I could not play handball, which is all I wanted to do. For a while, I could not even empty my ileostomy bag. Like, I did not have it in me. Like, I could not do it. I could not look at the poop. So my parents did that for me, thankfully. But like, I was in such a rough state, and there was days where I did not want to get up. I did not want to wake up. I did not want to move. There were days where I just sat with a blanket over my head, I kid you not, and did not say a word to anybody. And that's rare for me because I do talk a lot. Did not say a word to anyone. I was in such a rough state that I remember being so upset at God for not taking me when he had the chance. And I was like, and I would think, God, why don't you want me? Like, why would you let me endure this? Like, this pain that I'm constantly going through. Like, I was constantly in pain. Why are you letting me do this when you had the opportunity to take me? I'm gonna try not to cry again, but like I was so bad. Like, that's the things I thought. And oh, also, let me go back. So before I left the hospital, like around February 13th, before I left the hospital, I was also upset. They also kept giving me Oxy, right? For the pain that I was in. However, around February, let me see. I'm sorry. Oh, if they would have stopped after a minute or two, I would have died at the age of 18, and I have so much. I had so much more life to live, and I wouldn't even be here today, you know? That's hard to imagine. But the hardest part about this whole situation is knowing how my family felt. Knowing how my family must have felt when my dad and stepmom, they got the call and they called them at 3:30 in the morning. They were probably already thinking the worst because they were staying in a hotel because it was COVID, so both of them couldn't stay. And the doctors didn't want them to stay. The doctors wanted them to get rest anyway, but imagine getting the call at 3:30 a.m. I'm so sorry. And the first thing they say is that your baby girl has COVID. I cannot imagine the pain. I cannot imagine the pain that my family must have felt, knowing that I was this close from leaving them forever. And that hurts. That hurts so much, knowing that the pain that imagining my dad getting the news, I can imagine him just falling to the floor to his knees. I can imagine him just bawling. And praying, God, don't take my girl from me. God, don't take my baby girl. Please don't take my baby girl. Luckily, God didn't take his baby girl. But I picture when I'm on the ventilator, it's sad. They took one so I can remember where I came from. It's so sad, but the saddest thing is looking at my dad in the corner and all the life gone from his eyes. All the pain in his face. All the sadness, all the hurt. He was hopeless, man. And that hurts more than anything. Knowing that my family hurts so much. So much. Sorry. I gotta get it together. I'm so sorry. I'm back. So, it's, after January 13th, I don't know what exact day it is, and I've coded. And I'm still on the ventilator. I come off the ventilator, thank God. Actually, I wake up a few days before I come off. being awake on the ventilator is so hard because you cannot talk, and my electrolytes were so bad that I had tremors. Like, my tremors were so bad that I could barely write. I remember some kind of funny thing that happened. So Clay had tore his ACL and Achilles back to back, and I woke up and I was excited to see his first game. So I had wrote down, can you wait to the nurse, can you wake me up at 10 p.m. because the Warriors play at 10 normally, because I thought it was Clay's first game. She wakes me up at midnight, right? 40 seconds left in the game. My parents come tomorrow, the next day. They come the next day, and I'm like, I missed Clay's first game. It was like, I'm not talking, obviously, I'm writing down. I'm upset. I'm like, I missed Clay's first game. Like, that's all I wanted to see. It turns out, I was so upset about missing that and missing that 3 days ago was his first game. So I'm complaining that I missed his first game. And I was so out of it 3 days ago that I didn't realize it was his first game. So that was kind of funny and sad. It was a sad moment for me because I was so excited to watch him come back, because I had watched the rehab process and him. And the Warriors are my favorite team. I watch them every game they play, so for years straight. But until this happened, I watched them for 5 years straight, every game. So that was interesting. So now I see it. But okay, back up. So during this time, I come off the ventilator. Of course, they're like, you can eat ice chips. That's about it. Also, at this time, I'm in the surgical ICU, by the way. But I'm like, I told my nurse, I'm like, I'm having chest pain. And they're like, let me tell the doctor, because I had some great nurses in the surgical ICU, some great nurses, some that I still keep in touch with today. And I mean, they were there for me through everything. Like, I had one that braided my hair consistently, one that sung to me, one like brought me lotion, everything. They were always there for me. Like, I love those ladies so much, and I am so thankful for them, and I'm so thankful that they were there when I was there. And actually, some of my favorite nurses have been left the hospital, which is sad, but I'm grateful that they were there during the time that I was there, because they were just such amazing people, and they were so great at their job. And I really needed them. Like I said, without my family and without those nurses and doctors, I would not have made it. So, and God, of course, without God. So my chest is hurting. They're like, so the doctor says, we'll look. They did a EKG, and then they did an ultrasound of my heart. They were like, it's just a little fluid. It'll drain. It's probably because the compressions we had to do, and the fluid buildup that you're having, because I was in kidney failure, so I was having dialysis during this time, but it was like 24/7 dialysis. And the thing is, I had gained like 80 pounds of pure fluid. It was ridiculous. Like, I was so swollen. I'll see if I can find a picture. If I can, I'll insert it here. If I can't, I'm sorry, but I was so swollen. Like, you could touch me and it would just be an indent, and then it would come back up slowly. So bad. Ugh, so bad. So I had dialysis 24/7 in the room. But they're like, there's nothing. It's nothing. It's okay. So January 31st, they come back, and I'm like, my chest is hurting, and it's hurting worse. So they're like, it's just a little fluid. So I have pericarditis, right? So they put in a window on my chest right here, right? Not a window. They put in a drain, a cardiac drain. That didn't work. So on February 1st, I had even more fluid around the heart. So it kept building up. So they had to do an incision of my heart section. They had to cut my chest and then do an incision there to drain the fluid on February 1st. So then I was down to not the ICU of the cardiac unit, but like the cardiac step down unit. So right, not on the regular floor, but not in the ICU. Yeah. So they had to open my chest. So now I have a scar down my chest because they waited instead of taking action when I told them my chest hurt. But like I said, and I have said to many people, and I will say again, I love the doctors that I have, but also if you are a black woman or a black person, make sure you get a second opinion, because doctors assume that you are tougher and assume that you're exaggerating your pain. And there was no way that I was exaggerating the chest pain that I was having. And I could see where they thought, oh, it's the compressions. Like, they had to, you have to do compressions hard. So I kind of went with it. But when they said there was fluid around my heart, but it's not enough to do anything about it, I was like, okay now. Something's a little off, right? So then, February 1st, they had to cut my chest open. I was not awake for the other procedures up to this point, like beforehand. This one I was so nervous because I'm like, you're cutting my chest open? Like, I was so scared, not gonna lie. And at the time I had a catheter in my neck. No, it wasn't in my chest. Right now it's in my chest, but it was in my neck. So I wasn't even awake during that, but I know that caused me pain. So I'm like, okay, chest, that's gonna hurt. So they did that. They did the incision, and I was in the hospital for 19 days after that. So in total I was in the hospital 42 days, that run. I say that run because I ended up going back, but that run. So around February, like 5th, they kept giving me Oxy for the pain that I was in. But I was in kidney failure, so it was not filtering. So it was just Oxy building up. And they had overdosed me. And the bad part about it is they did not even notice they had overdosed me. Crystal actually noticed that I was like so out of it, like I was just like wasn't moving until she like touched me, and she went and got the doctor. He's like, something is not right. Y'all need to make sure everything's okay, because we've never seen her like this, right? They have seen me at my worst, and this was just about that or even worse, right? And they were like, oh my gosh, something is going on. You need to check. And that entire time, Crystal kept tapping me, Jaden, wake up, Jaden, wake up, Jaden, wake up. Think about it. It's kind of annoying, but Jaden, wake up, Jaden, wake up. But she was trying to, because if I would have went out, never know what happened. So doctor comes in and goes, oh my gosh, she's overdosing, right? So they had to give me Narcan. And when I tell you, Narcan is the worst pain you will ever feel in your entire life. Because I remember her saying, like, I was out of it, but I heard the doctor say, he said, be aware she may scream. And I'm not thinking nothing of it, because I'm like, why would I scream? Like, I'm feeling on top of the world right now. I mean, I can't move or nothing, but like, who knows? Like, am I even like, what is this, right? And he goes, she may scream. And then she gives me the Narcan. And when I tell you, my body started burning. Like, I felt like somebody had lit me on fire. I did scream. I was like, oh my gosh, ah! Like, I was really screaming. Like, my body had been lit on fire. And then on top of that, all the pain that I had from all the previous surgeries, 5 of the previous surgeries, had came back after my body was burning. So I literally have never felt so much pain in my entire life, especially all in one moment. And I was like I was so hurt, and I was so pissed off that I had to go through that because they did that. Like, that was not my fault. If y'all wouldn't have overdosed me on Oxy, I would not have had to experience that pain. So don't do drugs, kids, because Narcan is the worst. It is the worst, especially the IV one that I got. It's the worst. It makes you feel like utter hell. It feels like you are dying. You are burning alive, and so much pain. Do not do drugs, kids. All right. But that run. So I left the hospital on February 20th. And it's funny, on the way home, my mom brought me home. And on the way home, let me actually go back. I would just like to give a huge shout out to my family, my friends, and the people that were there for me in my toughest times. Like, I had so many great friends that came up. Even like the handball coach, he came, and I really appreciate him. But like my friends, Mackenzie, Hannah, Jaya, the choir, so many people came to support me. Denali, Afuma, so many people came to support me, and I could go on about names, so sorry if I did not say your name specifically, but so many people came to support me, and I really, really appreciate it. And also, I also want to thank Jameer, yes, because I was on the phone with him a lot when I was in the hospital, and he always found a way. Jameer Yusmuni, he always found a way to say the right thing, and say like it's okay, have faith. And obviously we talked about other things, talked about past, talked about a lot of things, but he always found a way to, I don't know, kind of minister to me. When you're in such a tough state, it's kind of hard for you to, or you would think it would be hard for you to hear the ministry and take it in, but it wasn't actually, and I did not know I needed it until I got it. So, like, thank you so much, Jam. And also, I want to thank Devontae Anthony as well, because I had called FaceTime one of them, like this is like February 14th or something, not even 14th, probably right after I had that window open, and then I called them. So it was actually February 1st, the day I had that procedure, and Jam had said some things, but I called because they had choir practice that night. So I FaceTimed Jam, and I was looking at the choir, talking to everybody, and Devontae took the phone, and they kind of preached, or he acted like it, I don't know. But the things he was saying, at the time I laughed at, because I'm like, you're being stupid. I really laughed at it, but I actually really needed that. And for the rest of this journey, I used the words that he had mentioned in that conversation. And I never thought that I needed it. And I never thought that, never thought anything of him saying that, like, talking about how good God is and how everything happens for a reason. And I never thought, oh my gosh, I was really, when he had really went through that, I was laughing at him. Like when he was really in the hallway at the school on FaceTime with me, I was laughing because I'm like, he plays too much. But honestly, the words he said were very, very important to me and very instrumental to my recovery, because when I was going through something, when I felt bad, I would look back and think back on that. Sorry, this is taking a long time. So let me kind of speed up because there's still a lot more in this journey. So sorry, but I did want to thank those people, and my family has always been there for me. So like, y'all are my favorite people in the world, and I love y'all, each and every one of y'all, so much. And I could not do this life without y'all. So February 20th, I came home, and on the way home, literally leaving the hospital, my mom hit something in the middle of the road. I think it was glass, and her tire goes flat. No, it was a nail. Her tire goes flat. So we pull over on the side of the road. We pull a gas station. She puts air in it. Obviously, that's not going to work if there's a hole in it, but she didn't realize it at the time. And literally, while we're at the gas station, literally 10 minutes after I left the hospital, I am literally bawling. Not because the tire's flat, not because I'm still in the car, but because I look down and I see an ileostomy. And I'm like, this is really what I have to go home. I have to poop in a bag. And at the time, I did not know when it was going to get reversed. So I'm like, I have to go and poop in a bag. So I'm literally looking down at the ileostomy and crying. And my mom's panicking because air won't go in her tire. And I'm crying. I'm just bawling my eyes out. Yeah, I'm literally bawling my eyes out. Like, I have an ileostomy. This is how I gotta go home. And then I spent 42 days in the hospital, and that entire time, I really did not think about the ileostomy. And the minute I leave, that's all I can think about. I was distraught. So, finally, we get on the road again. Because air worked, right? That worked for a total of 5 minutes. Yeah. So then, the tire goes flat again. We have to go to this place to get the tire fixed. And they don't have any room yet, but they were literally about to close. It's like 5 minutes from closing. But they were willing to take us in after. And I couldn't get out of the car because I was on a walker. I could barely walk. Because in the hospital, they really didn't let me, like, near the end, I started walking a lot more. But, like, before then, like, I was in bed. I was in bed for, like, 30 days straight, right? So you can imagine the weakness, right? So they lift us up on the thing. Literally, we're in the car, and they push us sideways so they can put a new tire on. So that was interesting. No, they didn't put it. They fixed the tire, and they were like, my mom's going to pay, and he's like, no, You are obviously going through a lot. I'm like, thank you. So it's a 2-hour drive home. So I spent a total, on the day home, 7 hours in the car. 7 hours. When I got home, I was so tired. I was so exhausted. And I was so upset because I would look down and there's an ileostomy. And I'm like, I still gotta go to dialysis. Like, what is my life? That's what I was thinking. So after February 20th, the depression started to kick in. February 20th, I was fine. A few days after that, I was fine. But then I started getting severely depressed. I have never been in that state ever before in my life prior. I had never felt so helpless and hopeless, and never in my life have I felt like, one of the reasons is like my ileostomy bag, because where they did the incision and then pulled out my intestine was right beside my belly button. That, because, you know, they were not planning on doing it. They just like impulsively did it because they had already cut their stomach. So it was right beside my belly button. So none of the bags would stay on. So they would constantly break. And imagine waking up and there's poop on you. And the worst part is it like would make my skin raw. So like imagine like a baby with diaper rash. That's how my stomach was. And like I think I have a picture, so I'm probably gonna insert it. So warning, it may be a little disturbing for some, but it was so like raw all the time. It hurt to move, like move forward, move back, any movement, it hurt. So that, and then I still had to wake up every morning, well, every other morning, and go to dialysis, and that was hard. I was in physical therapy. I could not play basketball. I could not play handball, which is all I wanted to do. For a while, I could not even empty my ileostomy bag. Like, I did not have it in me. Like, I could not do it. I could not look at the poop. So my parents did that for me, thankfully. But like, I was in such a rough state, and there was days where I did not want to get up. I did not want to wake up. I did not want to move. There were days where I just sat with a blanket over my head, I kid you not, and did not say a word to anybody. And that's rare for me because I do talk a lot. Did not say a word to anyone. I was in such a rough state that I remember being so upset at God for not taking me when he had the chance. And I was like, and I would think, God, why don't you want me? Like, why would you let me endure this? Like, this pain that I'm constantly going through. Like, I was constantly in pain. Why are you letting me do this when you had the opportunity to take me? I'm gonna try not to cry again, but like I was so bad. Like, that's the things I thought. And oh, also, let me go back. So before I left the hospital, like around February 13th, before I left the hospital, I was also upset. They also kept giving me Oxy, right, for the pain that I was in. However, around February, let me see. Anyway, so depression has kicked in. I'm super depressed. There was one day in particular I got from dialysis. Dad got out of the car, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna sit in here. It's summer, midsummer. I'm gonna sit in here, close the door, and kind of hope that all my oxygen just goes away and that God takes me. And I was like, I will sit here as long as I have to. Just let me go. That's it. And just the thing that I was in that state is depression is real, and they had already upped my antidepressants. It was already at 100 milligrams. Depression is really real, and it could kill you. And like, I literally sat in the car, and I was in the car for a while until my dad came outside, and he's like, I had locked the door too because I did not want anybody to open. I wanted to be in there, and in case something had happened to me, I did not want anybody to open the door. I did not want anybody to be able to resuscitate me. But my dad came out, and nothing had happened yet, so I'm just sitting there, and he's like, you have to unlock the door. You have to come in. And he convinced me to come in, and I just came in here and I bawled. Like, to think that I was in that state where I was wanting to die so bad that I was willing to sit in a hot car when you know so many like little kids have been through that I just bawled, because I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on with me? Like, never in my life have I been in that state. So that was an interesting few months. Fast forward to June, I had a colonoscopy and an ileoscopy before I could get reconnected. So they wanted to know if I could get reconnected, if I had enough healthy tissue to reconnect. That was a very traumatizing day and scary day, because I was like, if they cannot reconnect me, I'm already severely depressed. Imagine finding out that you have to have an ileostomy for the rest of your life. It was bad. And during this time, I will say I was in therapy, but it just was not hitting. I was just in such a rough state that there was really nothing that could have pulled me out of it but God. So it's also actually what happened was on Easter Sunday, I was talking to my dad, and I had heard let go and let God. And I was like, you know what? I always say I'm letting go of this, giving it to God, but I never really did. Like, this is causing me so much stress, so much anxiety, so much pain. So obviously, this was before everything else, but it was Easter Sunday. So much pain, so much anxiety. So I was trying not to be scared for the colonoscopy, because I'm like, I am letting go and letting God. And that day, a weight got lifted off of my shoulders. And that, I won't say the depression went away 100%, but the majority of it just, I was free. And I literally let go and let God. So the colonoscopy, I wasn't as stressed as I normally would have been. I mean, I was still a little scared, not gonna lie. I'm like, oh my God, please don't tell me I have to keep this forever. But, fun fact, I actually woke up during this colonoscopy, and started fighting them. So, oh, you can imagine. So I let go, I let God, and God worked his magic. And July 1st is when July 1st is when I was reconnected. So no longer an ileostomy. Thank God, hallelujah. So I was in the hospital for 10 days. I was so bloated after that surgery. That was terrible pain, and they could only give me so much medicine, so much pain medicine, because they wanted me to poop, and medicine clogs you up. It makes you constipated, and they did not want that. So like, they were giving me the bare minimum. I was so bloated. Like, I'll insert a picture. No, I do have a picture of that, so I'll insert it right now. Also, if you have a weird stomach, don't look. But I was so bloated. So I was in the hospital for 10 days after that surgery. So that's already 52 days in the hospital in the year, total, right? I had never stayed overnight in the hospital before then. So then I go home. I got my bag reversed. I can eat what I want. That's what I think. I was like, let me have some corn. Love corn. So I went to Chipotle. Can I get some extra corn? Can I get another scoop of corn? One more scoop of corn, please, right? 3 extra scoops of corn. Me, right? Stupid. Yeah, I know. Dumb. My stomach starts hurting. Again. 3 days later, I go to local ER, the one that left me in the hospital, right? They realized they were wrong. The one that left me in the hallway, to be specific. They realized they were wrong. Doctor comes in, he goes, we need to fly you to UNC. You have a bowel obstruction. I'm like, come on. I literally just left. Literally. So, I have a bowel obstruction. They fly me, first of all. The helicopter was so small for all 4 of us. Like, not my family. Like, there's 2 people back there. There's me on the stretcher. And then there's the pilot. Too many people for that small helicopter. And I kept looking down, and it was giving me anxiety. And he goes, you can go to sleep. Because it was like a 40-minute flight. He goes, you can go to sleep. But literally, every time I went to sleep, he would tap me. 15 minutes away. 10 minutes away. I'm like, how am I going to sleep if you keep tapping me? So loud, too. So they had headphones. Anyway. So I have bowel obstruction. Then I get there, and then they're also like, you have a blood clot from, I guess, the reversal. The reversal. It's just a little. It's nothing like during, but we're going to remove it. So they put a drain in. And let me tell you, when they took that drain out, that was the worst pain I ever seen. They put it so far down, it was in my vagina. And when they pulled that out, ooh, Oh, it hurt. Oh, I still feel the pain. But anyway, I had a blood clot in my stomach, and I also had gastritis, which was, I think, like the main reason of my symptoms. I mean, I did eat a bunch of corn, and then I also might have had hot Cheetos with Tabasco sauce on them. So, not good, especially after having surgery and being in the hospital for 10 days. Why would you? I don't know. I thought I was free. So, I ended up with all three of those things. Had gastritis for a while, but 5 days later, I was able to come home. So, I was in the hospital another 5 days. After the 10 days, I was just there. Came home in the hospital 10 days, came home for 3, ended up back in there for 5. Because I decided to eat whatever I wanted to. Anyway. So all of that happened, and I went back to school in August, thank God. I'm still currently on dialysis. I hope to get a kidney transplant this summer, which is what the doctors believe it's going to happen. I do have to be cleared by my GI doctor, who is great. I love me some Dr. Shalinsky, and I also love my surgeon, Dr. Stim, GI surgeon. They are great. Best doctors I've ever had. But he's not going to clear me till I've been on my Stelara, which is my Crohn's medicine, for a year, just to make sure I don't have a flare-up again. So, yeah. So, hopefully this summer I have a kidney transplant. But I went back to school in August. Nobody expected I would go back to school. My surgeon, my doctor, my GI doctor, they were kind of skeptical. They kind of didn't really want me to go back. They were like, it's nice that you're going back, but you stress way too much. And they knew that from me because they had both seen me in the hospital. You stress way too much. We don't think it's the best idea, but as long as you take care of yourself. If not, we're going to have to pull you out, okay? So I went back to school in August, thank God. It's December, and I'm still, like I said, I'm still on dialysis, but I am living my best life. I just finished my, second full semester at college because I missed a whole semester, but, luckily I had enough credits, so I'm still sophomore, just like everybody else, so thank God for that. So I didn't have to worry about school, but, how far I've came from January to December is wild. It's almost a year since all of this happened, and it's going to be extremely hard for me to talk about it then, so that's why I decided to film this video now. All of it was still difficult, but, God has been so good to me, and I'm not sharing this video for you to force my religion on you, no. I'm sharing this video for you to know what God did for me and what he can do for you. You don't have to believe, but I do, and God did this for me. God, he is a way maker, a miracle worker, and a promise keeper. And he kept me here. Even at times when I did not want to be here. God has been so good. And I am so grateful for him. And I'm sharing my testimony with you because I want y'all to know, one, the signs of getting Crohn's disease, what kidney disease can do to you, my testimony, and what God did for me. What he did for me, what he brought me from. And if he did it before, he can do it again. Same God right now, same God back then. So whatever you're going through in life, just know God's got you. He will make a way. And it may not be the road that you want to take. You think I really wanted to go through this? But no, but it happened for a reason. And God doesn't make mistakes. And everything happens for a reason. So I am grateful that I am still here. And that God was not done with me yet and has a plan and a purpose for my life. And to be honest, I don't know what that is yet. But I'm going to tell my story and I'm going to tell you how good God has been for me. And maybe that is tell you guys what God done for me and he can do it for you. But I don't know. This is my story. Obviously, there's still a lot that I could go into and tell you about. But this is the gist of it. This is the gist of what happened and how my life changed in the span of a few days. How I went from being completely healthy to the sickest and being septic, multi-organ failure, coding, and been on a ventilator at the age of 18. Even for my birthday, this was last year, 2021. I couldn't do it. No, it was not last year. It was this year, 2022. For my birthday, my 19th birthday, there was nothing I was gonna really do. I was still in physical therapy and things like that. But I was still so blessed to be here. So I just wanted to know, thank God for the blessings you do have, because somebody else may not have been blessed like you have. And I just want to say God is good. And this is my story. This is my testimony. this is what God did for me. He worked a miracle. He is a miracle worker, and I will praise him for the rest of my life. I love y'all, and thanks for watching my story. I know it's a long video, but this is the ins and outs of what happened to me. And if you ever have any of these signs, go to the doctor. Get multiple opinions. If you think that you may have now, let me say it. Do not Google your symptoms, because they will tell you you're dying, and that's not the case normally. Do not Google your symptoms, but if you're not feeling well and you know your body, there's something wrong with it, and the doctors keep telling you no, get multiple opinions. Go find out what is wrong with you. You know your body better than anybody else. Go get the help that you deserve and you need. You are your biggest advocate. So, and somebody, like my stepmom told me that, my work study mentor, he's told me that. Literally, you are your biggest advocate. Advocate for your health. Anyway, so thank y'all for listening. Thank you for coming along with this whirlwind of journey. Sorry for getting emotional during it. I knew it would be a hard video to film. I'm surprised I didn't get even more emotional, but I just want to say God is good. Thank you for watching. This is my story. Also, please like, comment, and subscribe to hear more from me. Hopefully they'll be a little more lighthearted. Bring you some joy.